I then I got invited out to Kyoto, so I've done 2 projects there, so this was 2008. I got invited out to do a show there, so I thought I'd take the same principle as the tapes, but apply a different approach to it. So I started tying ribbons to extractor fans into air vents, and then again photographing them, and then there'd be a slideshow of them. This is in a cafe. And that's so it was in a temple in Japan, so I couldn't put any nails in the wall, any screws in the wall, or anything like that. So that's also partly why it became a slide projection. There's a lot of restrictions, cultural restrictions again, you have to be aware of. I also wasn't allowed to put the slide projector on the threshold of the doorway, which is where I wanted to put it. And because being in a temple, there was a reason why I couldn't do that. So there's lots of little things you have to deal with. So the second way that I've been dealing with these international residencies was I invented a character for myself, a musician character called Juan Carlo. And I think there are a few reasons for this. One, I think I felt that I've been I sort of set my own parameters as an artist. And as you get a little bit known for what you do, then people know you for doing a certain thing, and then it can be quite frustrating, quite difficult to move away from that. So I had this idea, if I invented another character, that they would essentially be me, but they wouldn't have the parameters that I set. They wouldn't have the history I had, the art school education I had, or any of this. So they would free me up to do anything I wanted. So that was the beginning of this project. And I used to play a lot of music and be a musician, and I didn't have time for that as my artwork developed, so I couldn't get the headspace for it. So I thought, well, I'll bring the music and performance into my artwork, and then I've got the headspace for it then. So it was just all these devices really to do what I like doing. So this was a project in Bremen in Germany, and it's a small gallery project space, like a little shop window space with a back room. So I decided to turn it into a club, into a music club. So building this wall here, and then just developing it over a 2-week period into a club. And then as my invented musician character, I did a performance. And then I flew back to London then. And I think they carried it on for a week. The curator had invited other sort of local bands to play, which is quite nice. So the idea with this was really, I had an invented character, so I invented a space for my invented character to play, to perform in. So then this is the second project in Japan, which was ended this time last year. And by this point, I decided that my invented musician character was going to do an ongoing project called field recordings, whereby I would travel around, so I'll be quite a nomadic character, and I would work with traditional musicians in the countries that I found myself. So I got invited to Japan, so that was the first chance to try this out. So I found myself a shamisen player, and a traditional house to stay in. And then I worked with the shamisen player over a month or so. And the idea was that I would ask her to remain as true to her style and her culture, her musical heritage, which is very rigid in shamisen playing, very much master and then tutors and students. And then I would keep my style, which is incredibly different, playing guitar in the West. It's just buy a guitar, buy some records you like, and try and play along or something. So much freer. But so I went to see her perform, and I asked her to stay true to her style, and we just kept playing until we found something where the language of music connected. And that's what the project was about, really. We didn't speak the same language. We were in a room together for days, not with very few words, and trying to find a point where we could communicate and how that would resonate. So that was what I was always striving for. It was in a way to see where the two languages would meet and create something new. So it was quite a searching project. It also ran alongside a residency I was doing at the university in Kyoto, which involved doing lectures and workshops. So I decided I'd do a performance lecture with shamisen play for the final lecture. And then with the workshops, I'd make stages with the students there for the shamisen player and then one for me. And we recorded sessions. So then with the students, I thought I'd take a similar approach. So I then was interested in the language of construction. And then so I was asking them to make, how would they make stages? Because there were very subtle differences. There was a little table I saw when there was a bar on one that went over, and it had a little block over the Tajik's explained it. And they'd left that bit, and it was an aesthetic detail. And I was saying to them, if that had been in the UK, we would cut that bit off, because we wouldn't. It would be like, it was a bit that you didn't need. But so these little differences I was trying to get at by working with them rather than me designing it or something. So. And that's what we ended up. The only two things well, the one thing I really wanted to make sure was that because it was about communication, was that our eye levels were the same, myself and the shamisen player. But other than that, the stages just took their form. So hers ended up looking like temporary Japanese festival structures that they put up, apparently. And mine was based on the, when I first got to the university, they had these notice boards that were based on, like I'd shown you the MDF board before, which is a very standard size in the West, but these based on tatami size, and that's how they sell their boards, same size as the tatami. And they use them as notice boards, or the university did. So the first thing I saw was my name on one of these boards, and they could stand on a little leg, and explaining that I was the artist in residence there. So, and then there were all these other boards, the same, with their own messages on. And then I realised these boards were all around the city. So for my stage, as it was like a nice sort of, like a temporary notice, a temporary thing, and as I was only there short term, so we just built some blank ones of these to make my stage. So one of the things about projects like this is the people, really, and the connections you make with people. So this is the shamisen player, and over a 6-week period, there's a lot of this interaction, a lot of communication, a lot of exchanging of ideas, a lot of new experiences, hopefully for both sides. So. And then this is the work that I ended up with. So I tried to reduce all of that project into one image, so that when I come back, I have a framed image of that tries to get all of that energy that was in there. So there was something between the faces here, the expressions, and the communication, and so we don't speak the same language, but there's something in that image for me that is like sort of pushing a thought to one another somehow, but without the communication skills that people normally rely on for that, i.e. speaking or writing or reading.